So this is the first topic on paper 2 of the GCSEs running in 2024 onwards. There may be a new specification, but homeostasis is a very common theme across all exam boards and will be around for quite some time. But do check your specification to make sure you're covering the right content. So in terms of specification, this is the current section on homeostasis, and there are going to be a number of other presentations covering each of these sections, so you may need to go through some of the other videos if you're looking for something specific under this bit of the spec. So on the right hand side you can see that again on the 2024 exams onwards until the new specification comes out, these are the different topics that will be covered under this unit, and it tells you which exam they can be found under, because some of them are only found on triple and some of them are only found on the higher exam as well. Pause the video for a moment, make a list of all the things that have to be controlled in your body. Spend no more than 5 minutes on this, but make a list and restart the video when you're ready. So hopefully you've now got a list of all the things that could be controlled by your body. The pictures in front of you represent three of the main things you need to know for the GCSE exams that your body controls. Pause for a moment and see if you can work out what each of the pictures represent, and when you're ready you can restart. So pause now. So the three pictures represent, picture number one represents the fact that your body has to maintain constant water levels. Picture number two is the fact that you have to maintain a constant body temperature, and number three refers to the blood sugar levels or glucose sugar levels. So in this video we're going to look specifically at the process of homeostasis. We're going to define some of the key terminology and come up with a couple of examples. So in homeostasis, the purpose of homeostasis is to maintain the optimum conditions. Optimum conditions means the best conditions, but I prefer to define it as the conditions when the rate of reactions is going as fast as it possibly can. So homeostasis is defined as the regulation of internal conditions of a cell or organism to maintain optimum conditions for function in response to internal and external changes. Now that's a bit of a mouthful to get through in an exam, so a much easier version is to refer to as homeostasis is the process of maintaining a constant internal environment. And you have to use that kind of wording in the exam, you can't deviate from it, otherwise you won't get the mark. So this diagram gives you a pretty good visual idea of how homeostasis works. So we've got this process called negative feedback. In negative feedback, you have the optimum level for any variable, for example, the water, the blood glucose levels, or temperature. And the optimum level, as we said, was the conditions in which the chemical reactions are happening at their maximum rate, or the best, as it's also referred to. In the optimum level, something happens which causes the level of that variable, for example, your temperature, to increase. Well, your body then takes steps to reduce the temperature back down to the optimum. We can also go the other way, negative feedback, where the optimum levels, we go down to a low level, and then something happens in our body to reverse that. So it starts to increase our body temperature. So the stimulus is the thing that results in a change. So a stimulus increases level. For example, we might start doing some exercise, would increase our temperature. And then the response is what our body does to reverse that change caused by the stimulus. And again, a stimulus can cause decrease, and the response will increase it back up again. This diagram gives you another way that we can visualize the idea behind homeostasis, where we have the optimum level line, the big thick blue line up the middle of the diagram, and some stimulus causes a higher level, the increase in the variable, and then our body, through negative feedback, makes some changes, which is the response to bring the level back down to the optimum. But then the level starts to go a bit too low, so our body takes another response and to bring the level back up to the optimum again. We just get this constant fluctuation over the optimum level. And the ideal is for our body to get the kind of wave formation, is to get it as close to a perfectly horizontal line as possible. So what you've got there is a quick quiz. Pause the video, have a go at the 5 questions, scribble the answers down, and when you're ready you can restart the video and check your answer. So question 1, what is homeostasis? Well, we've got the short version, which is maintaining a constant internal environment. The 3 factors that need to know about on the exam, remember there are plenty more, but these are the ones that need to be on the exams: temperature, water levels, and blood sugar levels, or blood glucose level is fine too. What word's best described in the best value is of course the optimum, and again we can define that as when we have the fastest rate of reaction. The type of feedback that returns temperature, well, that's our negative feedback. And what other factor does your body need to control to stay healthy? Well, there's loads of things. Basically anything found inside your body needs to be maintained: pH, carbon dioxide levels, O2 levels, and there's a whole wealth of different mechanisms involved in keeping those under control. So in terms of the nervous system, we mentioned already about a stimulus and a response. Well, a stimulus is a change in the environment, and the response is the outcome of our body's changes due to that stimulus. Stimulus are picked up by what we call receptor cells. Examples of receptor cells, and you are going to need to know all of them in due course, but it'll be covered in another video, is a pain receptor. We then have a coordination center, which essentially does the processing. And examples of that are the brain and spinal cord, and really that's the only two coordination centers you're going to need for GCSE. In terms of effectors, effectors is a fancy way of saying muscles or glands. That's the only two type of effectors you're going to need. And in terms of response, a muscle will give you a response of movement, and glands give you a response in the form of a hormone being released. So you need to start memorizing these definitions. So a stimulus is a change in the environment. And we've talked about receptors pick up the change. There are 5 main senses. Your 5 senses are sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. Now you've got to identify the body part linked to that and what receptor. The receptor is the cell, whereas the body part is obviously an organ. So pause the video. Spend 2 minutes, have a go and see how many you can think out of 1 to 10, and then when you're ready you can restart the video. So in sight we're going to be using our eyes, but the receptors are light receptors because they pick up light information. In terms of sound, we're going to have our ears, but the receptor is going to be a sound receptor because that's the information they pick up. Taste, the tongue, and they pick up chemicals. So you can talk about chemical receptors or you can talk about chemical taste receptors. I prefer chemical taste receptors because what you also have in your nose is the smell receptors, which are also chemical receptors. So I like to put the word smell and taste in there just so you can clearly identify if it's the tongue or the nose. Chemical receptor will get you the marks in the exam. And then last one, of course, is touch. And touch is any part of your skin. Any part of your skin has touch receptors on it in the form of 3 things: pressure, heat, and pain receptors, the 3 bits of information your skin can pick up. So now we're trying to build up a diagram that represents homeostasis, and we start with a change in the environment, and the change in the environment is referred to as a stimulus. Cells that detect the change are referred to as receptor cells. Remember that we're not talking about organs, we're talking about the receptor cells in the organs. And there are 7 main receptors. Pause the video, spend a minute, see if you can remember back to what all 7 were in the matching organs, and when you're ready you can restart the video. So pause now. Well, the 7 main receptors are heat, pain, pressure, sound, light, chemical taste, and chemical smell. Remember, you don't need the taste and smell thing. You would be absolutely fine with just chemical receptors in the exam. So we've done our stimulus, we've done our receptors, now we're going to look at the coordination center. And the coordination center is basically made up of 2 parts which make up the central nervous system. Now, if we're talking about a reflex, the only part of the central nervous system that is involved is the spinal cord. So if a GCSE question says about reflexes, you know the coordinator is going to be the spinal cord. But otherwise, it will be the brain and the spinal cord, or the brain on its own. Normally in GCSE exams, we talk about reflexes, so normally it is always going to be the spinal cord. The central nervous system, as it says, the brain and spinal cord, but you have all the other nerves in your body, and they make up the peripheral nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system makes up everything else. And in terms of response, anything that you think about and actively think about doing, that will involve the brain, whereas a reflex is an automatic response used to protect the body, and therefore only is the spinal cord. So we can go back to our diagram and add in some more detail. We have the CNS, which is made up of the brain and spinal cord, and those are the coordination center. Remember, CNS stands for the central nervous system. And our coordination center then sends a signal onto something that brings about a response, which we refer to as an effector. Time for a quick quiz, so pause the video, have a go at the questions, and when you're ready you can restart. So pause now. Well, name the cell that picks up the change in the environment. Well, that's called a receptor cell. Remember, there are 7 receptor cells. Go back and see if you can still remember them. The name given to changes in the environment is referred to as a stimulus. The 2 organs of the body that have chemical receptors are the tongue and the nose. Notice the question said organs, not receptors, it's organs. So therefore you should be naming parts of the body. The 3 receptors in the skin are pressure, heat, and pain. And what do the brain and spinal cord make up? Well, the brain and spinal cord make up the central nervous system. So the last thing I want you to do is think back to everything you just covered. Write down 5 questions, go away, give yourself 10-15 minutes to do something else, and then come back and see if you can come up with the answers to those questions.